Entering the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2021, the Memorial Tournament. DraftKings picks and preview. If you're looking for the final betting card, that will be out on Twitter in the newsletter. So subscribe to that in the comment section and description of the video and pod. That'll come out on Wednesday evening, along with some more research notes. If you're looking for stuff and projected ownerships and weather as we get closer, I will not be doing the live chat on Wednesday, but I will be doing a small-ish, basically the show that I do before we get into the live chat, that's around like 10-15 minutes. I will be doing that. That will appear on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets The Mix. For the audio version, of course, the video version will be up on Mayo Media Network, so subscribe to that right now. Also, remember to smash the like button to the episode in the comment section. Give me your 2 favorite plays in the $6,000 range at Memorial this week. Listeners League link is down there too, around 800 spots left right now, so that'll be done by Tuesday evening, so make sure that you get into that. Football restarts Wednesday and Thursday on the Pat Mayo Experience, a breakdown player by player and team by team of the NFC East and then the AFC East, and we're going to go division by division before getting in to each of the positional rankings for season-long fantasy. Plus, we're going to have a whole bunch. I have like 2 or 3 huge football announcements coming up, which are super exciting. So stay tuned to that, especially if you've ever thought about contributing in a video or audio capacity in the fantasy football realm. I may have an opportunity for you, the viewer, who wouldn't be the viewer anymore. You'd be the host. But I'm working on something right now. Hopefully I have that deal finalized by the end of the week, and we'll start rolling out what that is going to entail. Joining me on the line right now from awesomemode.com. I assume you had a good week. Everyone had a good week last week, Ben Raza.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. Somehow everybody won every tournament. I wasn't one of those people. I had a fine week. It was a weird week. So I locked Griot last week. I rarely, if ever, do that. So I only had to build 5-man teams. And that really changed a lot of things. I should have tailed you more on Kokrak. Congratulations. That was a sick call. That really prevented, obviously, some top end finishes.
It's funny because I had my best week on DraftKings in a really long time. And usually it's like, oh, I have 2 of 20, 6 of 6 lineups. I think I had like 18 of 20 in the money last week. But weirdly, Kokrak beating Spieth helped me in the outright betting market. But my best teams were all Spieth teams, just with the way that I ended up constructing all my lineups, because they had Whaley and McNeely in them, and my Kokrak teams didn't. And for whatever reason, I had no Spieth Kokrak teams. That's a shitty part about like when you make these combination of lineups. I looked at people's lineups who won like the 200,000. Like 2 people won the 200,000. Someone won like the 50,000. I looked at the lineup. I was like, I used all of those guys in my lineup. I just didn't get that right combination.
It happened. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just about, the permutations. You can have the right pool and it doesn't connect the 6 dots. So that is always a little frustrating, particularly when you have a good betting week as well, but still a good sign that you're on the right track heading into Memorial here.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good. I hit 2 top 5s in Euro, 2 top 5s over here for the each way doubles, which have been proven to become like pretty profitable for me over the past few weeks when I was hitting no outright winners. So that was helping me tread water a little bit. So that's pretty decent. So I assume it's all going to take a nosedive, or we just continue to ride the heater into Memorial, and maybe it just never ends, Ben, because that's always what happens. Plan. It never ends.
Of course, never ends. Just straight to the moon like everything else in the world.
Now, the shitty part is that having a good week and having so many lineups with so much potential and not getting there, like that only happens like 2 or 3 times a year. Like realistically, I think that people forget that. And I mean, you can probably speak to it a lot as well. Like there are 3 or 4 times in a PGA year where you are set up where, hey, if things break right for me on Sunday, I can win the big money here. And now, obviously, it so rarely happens that everything works out your way. I thought I was going to get there with McNeely. Then he made 4 bogeys in a row. I was like, okay, that's the end of me. Okay, thanks for playing. But if you need to put yourself into that position to be able to capitalize, it's just disappointing when it starts looking good and then it just goes completely against you by the time Sunday is over.
Know that feeling. You're 100% right. I mean, the difference between, and I could speak to both sides of this, the difference between a fantastic PGA year and a terrible one is usually a couple of Sundays closing. Like, it makes all the difference. All you can do is give yourself the opportunities to get lucky. The more you can get in position, eventually it breaks your way. But I know what you're saying. You only get a handful a year of where you really have a realistic chance on Sunday. And when you don't close those, it does sting a little, even though it's a positive week.
Let's go. Oh, you know what was good last week? The best plays lineup. It finished
Of course it was.
Finished in like the top 3,000 in the 15 or something. It was a top 10 lineup somehow, like top 10 percentile lineup.
You found something there. You just play all the chalk, and they're just unstoppable. Easy game. I need to start paying attention to this play the best plays lineup.
I feel like if I had, so as we've done this so far, I made 3 of them at the PGA Championship. 2 of them were really good. One of them had Sam Burns in it, so obviously that one didn't win. Although I don't think it did that poorly, because I think it was a 5 of 6 anyway, which was pretty good at the PGA Championship. But if I just played them in like double ups every single week, like I think they would have won every single week. Unfortunately, I don't play double up, so that's not helping me.
Yeah, I mean, it has a cash mentality, obviously, with all the ownership that's concentrated, but we'll see. This is, I don't know. I like Memorial. Last year screwed me up because they played this course 2 straight weeks, and it kind of messed with my mind. That was a weird stretch of golf.
Yeah, I much preferred the Workday. That one was very
So did
successful
I.
for me. Not so much Memorial. That was successful for basically everyone who lost money at Workday. They just like kept the same picks and did really well at Memorial, where I kept the same picks and did really poorly at Memorial. Turns out Morikawa couldn't go back to back, but this course has been completely redesigned. Well, not completely redesigned. There's brand new fairways, brand new tee boxes, brand new greens, brand new greenside bunkers. Still the most difficult bunkers, greenside bunkers on the PGA Tour year in, year out in terms of proximity and getting out of them. It's 100 yards longer than we saw a year ago, 7,543 yards, par 72. Got to make your bones on the short par 4 and each of the 4 par 5s. And then if you can just kind of play the hard par 4s, there's 6 of them, like 1 over for the week or even for the week, you're probably going to win, because that's the way that it turns out. Same with the par 3s. 3 of the par 3s are over 200 yards now. Do you think that looking back at course history, now that there are new elements of this course, is completely thrown out the window? Because I would say that it's not. I would say don't read anything into what happened last year at Memorial, because it's never played that hard before.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, but I looked at courses. I mean, course history in general, there's a lot of people that think you should throw it out regardless of the situation, but no, there's stuff to glean from it. Now, there are changes. Maybe it plays at a different skill set, but I still think there are some things that you can draw. You just mentioned it. This course, there are certain holes that you have to attack, certain holes that you need to just hold on for dear life. So there's scores out there. I don't think it'll be nearly as difficult as last year.
In the newsletter this week, I've already started it. That way I will remember to do it this week. I have a whole bunch of putting splits, because I think that's going to be the one thing that kind of screws people up who've played this tournament a lot, is that they've added new undulations on the green. They've completely redone the greens. Now, it's still going to be bent. There's a little bit of POA in them, apparently, this time of year. But they're going to run incredibly fast, like they always do. So guys that are familiar with these green speeds will likely do well. So just using fantasynational.com, /mayo for a 20% discount. You can go customize your search any way you want. Looking at like bent grass plus lightning /fast greens. Obviously the Masters data isn't in there because it's hard to get Masters data, but I do have my hands on the Masters data for this year. So I included some of the outliers that kind of pop up who did well. Spoiler alert. Christian Bezuidenhout is one who putts really well on these surfaces. He popped up in the short term with a small sample in terms of like that filter. Plus, he did really well at the Masters. Matt Wallace also popped up in that, but putted not poorly at the Masters. He lost like 0.7 strokes or something like that over 4 rounds. That's not the end of the world. You can still have a very good week. But other than that, he's putted really well, especially at this tournament over time. So I'm going to see if it takes people a little bit of an adjustment period if they're really familiar with a place going forward. But it's hard to really think too much about that when making your pick. So let's jump into it, the 10K level. Here's the issue that I have this week. And I don't know if it's going to be reflected in the ownership at all, but it's so much easier just to start your teams with like Xander at 97 than any of these 10K guys.
No doubt. So yeah, there's a couple things. 120-man field, it makes it a little easier to build in some regard, but it's also harder because there's less players to choose from, particularly in the 6K range. So you can start up top aggressively, and obviously you've got 6 good ones, but I see what you're saying. You've got Hovland, you've got Xander in the high 9s, probably an easier build, but I still find myself, particularly with JT, who's the last of the 6, I can't really quit him. I know the game isn't in perfect shape, but I have a lot of interest at 10-2.
JT at last week at Colonial had 2 amazing rounds on approach and 2 like horrible rounds on approach. I don't remember the last time that he had like 2 huge negative rounds on his approaches. Zalatoris was the same way. He had 3 like really bad approach rounds and 1 really awesome approach round. I'm kind of with you on JT. I think people will get to him because he's so cheap, but Hovland for $300 less is just going to be infinitely more popular, probably doubly as popular. Just looking at the ownership breakdown now between Rahm, Spieth, Bryson, Rory, Morikawa, and Thomas above the 10K level, it seems like people are pretty disinterested in both Rory and Bryson. So a guy who's won at this course in the past and the other guy who has the most rounds of 64 or better at this course over the past 10 years in Rory.
Yeah, I mean, that is a little surprising. I know you can't get exposure to all these guys, and I get Rahm, it's a defending champ, Spieth's playing out of his mind, so I get why people are going elsewhere. Obviously, it's not hard for me to make a case, and I mean, Bryson, I too, you know, I know this is kind of noisy, but I do read something into it. Like, you look at his history here, and it's like, oh, he missed the cut last year, but he also made a 10. Like, it's not the same as just playing bad in my mind. He screwed up on one hole. So I think Memorial's probably a better fit than maybe, even though he is a past winner, than the data shows. So I kind of do have some interest in Bryson, particularly in large fields.
He is one of those guys that popped up really highly on the fast bent grass green putting, although he did not putt well at the Masters whatsoever. The Masters just kind of seems to have his number. This is also one of those courses that, like, when we try to play it through, is like, where does Bryson play well? Oh, hard courses with really long rough. That's what this place is.
Yeah, there's a lot of similar. Now, Augusta, we'll see long term, but yeah, Bryson seems to not be able to figure it out. I get it, though. I think he can take advantage of it, work in and out of trouble. When he's at his best, of course, it's everyone talks about the driving, but it's the putting that really saves Bryson. He can get crazy hot with the putter. So I don't mind it. The form is so-so. But if he's the lowest owned of the 6 or whatnot, I'm sure I'll be able to get over.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, right now, the projected ownership on a Tuesday morning, at least, is like 7% on Bryson. And we've been seeing this pretty, not so much with Bryson, but there's always 1 or 2. I think it was Justin Thomas last week. Kind of forget who it was now. That of the 10K guys, there's just one who gets forgotten. Like, no one can get to them. And, like, if we drop into the 9s and I look at it right now, like, I don't have Hovland or Xander in my player pool at the moment. Instead, I just kind of loaded up on Cantlay, Hideki, Connors, Finau, and Reed. That's the place I want to be at. Like, probably most of the world. Finau and Cantlay are going to be out of control popular this week.
Yeah, I mean, Finau's a guy that even when he was struggling a little bit, the ownership never fully dispersed. And now, you know, he's starting to find form again. Obviously, it was quick to return. I will say, and this is the ultimate kiss of death, every time I say this, it goes poorly, but I like Xander this week. I know he's not playing the best golf, but he was fantastic here last year. He just couldn't putt. I distinctly remember him playing in this round, particularly on Sunday where he posted early and moved up the board. But the game's in better shape than I think the results have looked. He's obviously on a little drought winning, but I have no problem starting with Xander or just clicking Xander second and really going aggressive.
Past 2 years, 13th and 14th place finishes at the Memorial. And that's an interesting lineup strategy this week. So last week, with a similar type of field in terms of size, there was 121 players this week. There's actually 121 now. They allowed Lucas Glover as like an add-on to get into the field. So he makes 121. Top 65 and ties make the cut. We saw, a 25% 6 of 6 percentage in most tournaments last week. And that's because none of the chalk busted. We actually got it decreased towards the end when Sung Jae and Reed and Phil all missed coming down the stretch, but even like they weren't super highly owned. So none of like the top 8 guys who were owned missed the cut. That's probably not going to happen again this week. So if it does, it's going to be like a 35% 6 of 6 percentage, but you know, you can probably realistically pencil it in somewhere in the double digits just because so many people make the cut. Over half the field is going to make the cut. Like 60% of players are going to end up making the cut depending on how many people tie in that final spot for T65. So last week I built a bunch of balance rosters that essentially started with like Connors and Neiman and Kokrak in that range. And then I just basically locked in Spieth and Morikawa, locked them together, and then shuffled the bottom guys together and played like 9 lineups that way. It was Spieth, Morikawa, and a bunch of scrubs, knowing that more scrubs are going to make the cut than you'd think in a tournament like this. And I think that's going to be the same way this week. That's how Vince Whaley ended up like 25% owned.
Yeah, so the thing is I love that strategy. You just have to be... You bring up a good point. So like Vince Whaley last week was massively owned, but I would say out of that, say 25% that had him, like 80% of those lineups had someone north of 10K, like maybe even more, probably 90%. So it's like he's correlated so strongly to the top end of the board. When we get to the cheapies this week, they're going to be extremely correlated to those double up north of 10K. So interesting build. I like that because you can really spread it around. You just want to be aware of who the obvious pivots are.
Well, I do have an obvious pivot, I think, or at least a sneaky pivot at the very bottom, because when we get there, spoiler, Kyle Stanley is going to be like 20% owned this week. And I love Kyle Stanley this week. So does everybody. And hey, it worked out. I don't remember. Like,
me neither.
Like, there's sometimes like a 67 in a major, like a $6,700 player, like they're uber chalk and they play great, but they're usually like good players in majors. Like Corey Connors is a prime example this year at the Masters. He was like 6,800 or 6,900. Everyone used him. He came inside the top 10. Like, people could telegraph, like you could build that story, be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Corey Connors has been playing one of the best in the world right now. It's a major. He's just down in pricing because of it. I don't really include majors or WGCs or no cut events as it pertains to this, because you just get such good players in the $6,000 region. But that's even in the high sixes. I can't recall a low six player being as popular, as chalky, and actually coming through ever before. That terrifies me with Kyle Stanley this week.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Sue a couple weeks ago was like this, and he shot like 25 over.
No, I played him.
So did I. You just don't find players that low that usually check so many boxes. But Whaley, I mean, the form is ridiculous. Stanley, as we'll get to, he's going to be really popular. But if you're telling me you're getting like the pivots there are so lucrative, because you're legitimately getting like 1/8 the ownership in spots on guys that maybe are slight dogs to Kyle Stanley.
1/8, you're going to be looking at like this week, probably like
15th
more, because you're going to have like 0.5 guys versus a 20% owned guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is how, when people will look at my lineups and they wonder, how the hell did this guy play Russell Knox?
That's actually the guy that I was going to go to.
You see?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is
how it starts.
I'll try to find my Russell Knox stat. It is, here we go. Somehow, Russell Knox holds the best proximity to the whole average at Muirfield Village during the Memorial Tournament, not the workday, just the Memorial, of any player in the field with 22 or more rounds in the ShotLink era at 27 feet 7 inches. So he is the best approach player in this field at this tournament.
He could have some issues on these greens, but you know what? Just make your fair share of putts, and we'll be quite all right this week. But yeah, you see, Russell Knox, as usual, squeaks his way into my lineups.
Isn't that every week with Russell Knox? Just try to make a few putts and don't miss the cut?
Yeah, and it works out predictably bad. I mean, we'll have to get there when we get there. It's actually been better. I give him credit. His approach game has been strong for a long time now. It's just the putter.
So in the 9Ks, one of the things that you can do to adjust a little bit, if you don't want, let's say you want to use Stanley, and you do think that he's very correlated with like Spieth Rahm lineups, or Spieth Morikawa JT, Hovland JT, Hovland and one of the top guys kind of thing. One of the things that I did do last week to use Whaley was still fade all of the 10K guys and use like 3 9K guys and an 8K guy. Then Whaley opens up at his like $6,100 that you can still get back into the sevens with the next guy. I felt like that was a bit more of a unique build.
100%. That's something, like I said, that is one of the stronger builds in my opinion, just when you're talking about just templates. When people take extreme chalk, it's natural to be like, all right, I have all this money, let me go all the way to the top. But you can click in, like I have on my screen right now, Xander, Finau, Reed, and you have 7,300 left. So like, even if you punt one of the positions, you're able to take 2 other pretty, solid golfers in the mid-range. No one really does that because it's always stars and scrubbed or balanced. And people who build balance, they think start in the 9s, end in the 7s. So you're getting the best of both worlds in a lot of ways, especially if you can survive the risk. So
in the 9Ks, do you have a preference? I mean, you said Xander. I wrote up Cantlay at $9,500. I actually wrote up Connors at $9,300 too. That was before the pricing came out. That seems a bit rich, but it's funny because he's good out of the sand, but he's a really bad chipper. So maybe he can actually kind of get it going. There's just so many guys, like all the guys that I bet this week. I didn't bet Connors, but I bet Reed, I bet Hideki, I bet Finau, and I bet Cantlay. I think I actually like Hideki the most.
Yeah, I mean, Hideki is one of those guys, even during, I guess you call it the struggles. Like his around the green game is always strong. It's the putter that has problems. And of course, the irons have always been solid. It's the same story with me. I know Reed hasn't looked great, but I still like him, particularly if you think it plays similar in terms of difficulty to last year, I think that's probably doubtful, but that's built for Reed. I mean, he just is that type of player. He can work in and out of trouble. He can make his fair share of putts. The stats are never going to back that up to the fullest extent. So if he's the lowest owned, and he may very well be, I'll probably look to Reed at 91.
He's going to make the player pool as well. Like I said, I already bet on him at 40-1. So maybe that's enough for me, that I have enough on that I can mitigate a disaster if he ends up winning. I'll win anyway. And if he bombs out, he's not like killing my DraftKings lineup. That's the old Siwoo strategy. Bet him at 100-1. Just don't use him in your DraftKings lineups. And that way you won't get a big zero after he withdraws. But it's no different than him coming in second when you bet on him in the outright betting market. The guys here that I really have kind of a queasy feeling about that I'm not playing. I'm probably not going to play Xander, and I'm probably not going to play Hovland. And that just he's putting so well, but if somehow he doesn't play well, I feel like I'm in the driver's seat this week.
So there is an element of that, obviously ownership, and that's one of the things over at Awesemo that we're trying to be cognizant of always, because if Hovland is massively owned, I do like him in theory, and it's not to say I'm going to just cut him out of the player pool, but if you can survive that, you pick up a ton of equity. And I totally get that with so many guys in the nines. Scheffler's probably a guy that's going to get squeezed for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Scheffler's getting squeezed by everyone, at least per the early way that people were constructing lineups. He and Sam Burns at $8,900 are just basically unowned.
Yeah. I mean, Scheffler, it's a weird one because I'm almost positive this could all be made up, but I'm fairly certain that he shot like 20 over at Workday in the round one, and then he was much better at Memorial the second week. I don't think this is a bad course for him. I prefer Reed. I prefer Finau. Too many guys probably right above him for me to get solid exposure.
I think that's going to be the case. It's Cantlay for me that's becoming a bit problematic because I like him. I bet on him to win. When I first looked at it, I was like, oh, I'll believe that the numbers that I saw in the play that he had at the PGA Championship are real. He continues that forward. You're getting a former champion at $9,500. If the putter comes back to life, all of a sudden he's the best value on the board kind of thing. But I do like Hideki more right below him at a cheaper price just because Hideki's playing so well. Although it's weird because even though Hideki just won the Masters putting pretty well, I have more faith that Cantlay will still putt well.
I see that. I'm kind of Hideki is just it kind of sucks. I mean, it's great that he did it at the Masters for him, but it's like most people, you don't have that data, so you don't see it. It's almost like it never really happened in some ways. But yeah, I mean, Cantlay, he was really struggling. He found certainly the ball striking at the PGA. It's still a work in progress with this putter, but I'm with you. I think sooner rather than later, he's going to be back to his rock solid form.
If Jason Kokrak was in this field, knowing how tough the greenside bunkers are, is there any way that you could play him?
No, he would be in the, who else would just be completely coffined by something like, I mean, honestly, Corey Connors, who I never get right anyway, but I do worry about him around the green as well.
I worry about him around the green, but I don't actually worry about him too much out of the bunker. There's something I really...
Out of the bunkers.
Like the stats kind of back it up, but it's the first thing I really noticed when he was playing API on that Sunday. And he got out to the big lead and he gives it back because that's what Corey Connors does. And now you're actually paying a premium for him, but he just comes inside the top 20 every single week. It's kind of crazy. But around the green, he is god-awful. And the putter has reverted back into old-school Corey Connors. But out of the sand, he's not bad. It's really bizarre that he can't chip it out of the rough, but out of the sand, not a problem.
That is kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, there are certain guys you mentioned. This is no joke. So Burns is a guy. I think he's another one that, I mean, I'm sure you have, I don't know if you have sand save data in front of you, but guys that I worry about, Burns, Neiman, I think is getting better, but those two in particular, a lot of the young guns, they're more, I think of them at the 3M shooting 30 under, not grinding it out per se.
Well, it's funny because Neiman shows up at really hard courses despite having a lack of short game. It's really bizarre. Even Olympia Fields, where Rahm won last year, Neiman just grinded that entire week. When the conditions get tough, Neiman tends to get better because we think of him as someone who's going to go win at minus 25, but that's not actually where his best performances come. I just find it really strange. But you would actually be your anecdotal take about Scheffler, Burns, and Neiman. In this field of 121, they rank 116th, 110th, and 111th out of the sand over the past 24 rounds.
You say? It's all about feel. But yeah, I mean, I will give some credit to Neiman, who strung together a very long made cut streak here, and I do think that I'm a huge fan of his. It's just it is counterintuitive because his around the green game is so weak. You would think at tough courses he would get gobbled up, but so far he's found a way, particularly recently, to survive that.
Father's Day is just around the corner, and you probably need a gift for a hairy dad. So make your dad proud this year and get him and you the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right. The Lawnmower 4.0. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code 20MAYO at manscaped.com. Manscaped is the only men's brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming, and they just launched their Lawnmower 4.0. Imagine surprising your dad with a sleek, well-designed, optimized body hair trimmer that says, "Your balls will thank you," on the box. Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents, which is huge, thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. You might ask, how is the Lawnmower 4.0 different than other trimmers? Well, this upgraded trimmer includes a multifunctional on-off switch that can engage a travel lock. This is a great feature if your father or yourself do a ton of traveling. It also gives you the ability for a 4000K LED spotlight on and off when you need a more precise shave. Now you can shave your balls in the dark if you want to. The Lawnmower 4.0 even allows you to customize your trim through additional guard lengths with sizes 1 through 4. And the new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. You heard that right. Wireless charging ball trimmers are now actually a real thing. Have you seen a nose bush sticking out of your dad's nose? Well, the Weed Whacker Nose and Ear Hair Trimmer is one of the best nose hair trimmers on the market and a perfect gift for your pops. They also have another amazing line of products like cologne, crop mop, ball wipes, crop reliever, ball toner, and crop preserver ball deodorant. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code 20MAYO at manscaped.com. Get your dad a gift you know he's going to use. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code 20MAYO. Don't forget that you came from your dad's balls. This year, show your original home some love with Manscaped, okay? In his debut here in 2018, Niemann came in 6th. That week he lost around the greens. He's actually gained around the greens in the other 2 starts that he's had, although he lost 6 strokes putting last year to miss the cut. He's gained off the tee and on approach in both. Like, I'm such a sucker for Niemann. He's probably gonna win this week because I didn't bet him for the first time in ages. But just every single week, like, I just get sewered by how bad. And like, it's been especially bad lately. How bad he's been greenside.
He's been awful. But the results, I mean, they haven't been fantastic, but they haven't suffered a ton. Now, maybe that's because his putter is masking a lot of it. Tee to green is always good with him, so he's a tough one. I think he's probably priced towards the premium. I mean, you've got Fitzy there, you've got other guys in the mid-8s, Usti, your boy Cam Smith. I don't know. There are options.
So, yeah, the entire 8K range when we look at it, because you just kind of hit on the top end guys. Burns, Niemann, Fitz, Cam Smith, Louis, your boy, Sugar Shane Lowry at 84, Hoffman and Keegan are in this range, and the modeling has them as the first and second best players in the field, so that's always fun. Sungjae and Billy Ho is at $8,100 as well. Sungjae coming off that brutal miscut down the stretch at Colonial. After all, like, the hype that I've put behind Cam Smith recently, there's no way I can't play him this week. And fun part is everyone they either feel scorned by Cam Smith or the way that they're constructing lineups. No one is getting to Cam Smith.
So I definitely agree for me, Cam Smith is someone that has just at every turn defied the odds in my mind, but his putter is elite. He's definitely in a dead range, though, where people build. Majority of lineups are going to have 2 north of him and 4 south of him, I would say. No one really wants to click there. Even if you go balanced, I think you're more apt to go below him with a couple guys, Sungjae in particular, coming off the miscut. It's the same story with this guy. I don't know. It seems like, and this is pretty generous off the tee, so maybe he survives that. I have a tough time with his ball striking compared to the rest of the range.
The one good thing about him is that his putting has been really good, but that can go up and down. But his short game is elite. Out of the sand, yes. Out of the rough, it doesn't make really a difference that he's going to get the ball up and down. That's usually not going to be an issue for him. So you just have to pray it's one of those weeks where he hits his long irons really well, which helps. When I looked at the par 3 scoring over the past 75 rounds from 200 to 225 yards, he's actually second. But that also includes putting, so you kind of take it with a grain of salt, but at least he's giving himself enough opportunities. And those are super hard holes that if he can be kind of good this week, in the top 20% of players from like 175 plus, he's very much live. And do you buy anything into the narrative that this has been historically like a breakthrough place for a lot of younger players?
I mean, maybe there's something to that. I guess I'll say, what do you think the reason for that could be potentially?
I don't know. I just think that it's a bit of a weaker field, like compared to a major, but it's like the Genesis at Riviera or Bay Hill's not even that strong anymore. So like this and Riviera and Memorial are like the two non-WGC tournaments that have the strongest fields, but don't have all the elite players there. So I think it gives it more of an opportunity for those guys to kind of come up with a great week. Because we've seen Bryson do it, we've seen Cantley do it, we've seen Hideki do it. There's just been a bunch of them over the years. The guys that you would expect to have, even Rahm last year, although he has some big wins as well, like at Torrey Pines. But just the guys that you would expect to make the leap here for whatever reason. So if it was like Neiman or Connors or Victor, I mean, technically Morikawa did it at this course last year. It was just a different tournament. Scheffler would be another one that you can kind of throw onto that list. Smith, Fitzpatrick, like one of those guys feels like they're super live here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the field strength has something to do with that. Does Usti qualify? He could break through, couldn't he?
I mean, he has a major championship, so.
Yeah, but he never wins over here. And he, as crazy as it sounds, his short game, I'm not saying long-term it rivals it, but right now, his short game is as good as anyone's, Cam Smith included.
Yeah, he's 11th around the green past 36 rounds, first in putting.
It's ridiculous. And we know his irons, I mean, it's elite. It's tough with Louis, but he's really playing quality golf. He seemingly dunks it in the drink for random reasons at every turn at points, but everything else in his game has been fantastic for a long time now. Feel very comfortable with 8,500 for him.
Here's the issue. You're not alone in liking Louis this week. Louis is going to be
good.
That's never a good sign.
Really a big red flag. I miss the days where Louis, because I'm the number one proponent. His recent form is nice to see, but it really doesn't matter. He can turn it on randomly and he can lose it randomly. What about Fitzy?
Fitzy makes sense. Is it going to play hard enough for Fitzy? Because that's how he had his top finish last year. He went out and posted a 69 on Sunday, and the scoring average was like 76.
Such a bad day for me. I remember that. I needed Danny Willett of all people.
Yeah, he had a not good Sunday.
Him and Tony Finau, very bad that day. Yeah, I mean, again, but that's where I think you can build to certain conditions because we don't know about the course. If you think it plays really hard, someone like Fitzy, Reed, in my mind, these guys are real good pairings. In that type of test.
Would you get to Lowry that same way too? Because Lowry's like sneakily playing great.
Yeah, you mentioned him during the PGA show, and I owe you for that. You got me onto him a little bit, and he's just been good. The irons have been great. The putter's never good, but it's not terrible at this point. I have no problem with. I mean, this place doesn't remind me of Bridgestone per se, but he can handle tough courses. I have absolutely no problem with Lowry. He's another guy I would put in the same bucket as Fitzy, Reed, guys built for really difficult conditions.
It's funny, too, because you kind of mentioned you don't care about recent form, and you say you can correlate your lineups with skill sets, like it's a bomber's lineup or a short hitter's lineup. Could you play the ultimate, it doesn't matter what their recent form is lineup, because they might just win? You could play Reed and Louis and Lowry and Fitz and Siwoo and someone else.
I mean, if it especially with guys like that, I mean, Reed does this all the time. He misses, I think, maybe a couple more cuts than I think he should for how good he is. And then he wins. Like he missed the cut at Amex, then he just wins at Farmers. Like that's a Reed thing. Even last year, 51 at Genesis, wins the WGC in Mexico. Like he is a quick turnaround type guy. I don't worry about that stuff with those guys at all. If it becomes a long, like a Ricky situation, Could be a little more problematic, of course.
Forgot to mention, Ricky is also in this $8,000 range. I don't know if
Damn right.
I don't know if I can get to anyone. Like, I like Cam Smith, I like Lowry. Those two are going to make my lineups for sure. I'm not sure on anyone else in the 8Ks right now, and that includes who I expect to be a super popular Keegan, a super popular Hoffman, and I'm guessing that no one's going to play Im, Horschel, or Fowler.
I'll play some. So Ricky, I really think, and I don't have the answer to this, of course, but we finally saw it. Everyone, oh, like Ricky maybe found something. Yeah, he found the putter again. Like he needs to putt well. There's no other solution for him. The ball striking, even during his struggles, it was not that horrendous. It's just the putter's been ice cold. If he can continue to do that, what we saw at the PGA where he gained over 4 strokes putting, Ricky's going to be just fine. I just don't know if that was a blip on the radar or he actually found something.
I think it just kind of boils down to his irons. Because you said the driver was actually not great at the PGA Championship, but over the past few months it has been. It was the irons that were god awful during his really rough stretch. And like he was putting poorly, but not, guys putt as poorly. Morikawa putts as shitty as he putts every single week, and Morikawa ends up in the top 10 anyway. So it's his irons that really let him down. I'm looking at it right now, like minus 4.6, minus 3.3. And most of these are missed cuts. So this isn't 2 rounds. And then all of a sudden at Kiowa Island, plus 4.5, gained 4.4 with the putter. And he has yet to stop gaining around the greens. So I think on paper, that's why he's had so much historical success at this course, because he fits the bill of what you would want here, driving a little bit easier with the wider fairways. If the irons can stay relevant, and maybe not even 4.5, because I'm not expecting Ricky to win, but if you want him to come inside the top 5, come inside the top 10, because he's priced up again now, that you're looking for like a +3 week from him with the irons, and everything else like break even with the driver, putt well, chip well. I mean, he can get there. I'm willing to buy it more with Cantlay that he's back with the irons rather than, all of a sudden Ricky figured it out.
Oh yeah, so am I. I see, to me, like Ricky, even when he was at the height of his powers, obviously he was striking it better, more consistently, but he was just like Jason Day, an elite putter. So he masked a lot even there, and now he's been exposed because the putting isn't saving nearly as many of these errant shots. So we'll see. I don't love it. Ownership will tell the tale. I certainly like him more than Keegan. I'll say that much.
I mean, Keegan, you mentioned Firestone. I think that is a direct corollary, especially with the conditions, because they're both Ohio courses. They both get played generally around the same time of year. I mean, they don't get played at the same time of year anymore, but stronger fields. I mean, that one has a bit more narrow fairways, but the green complexes run very similar and at a very similar speed as well. Another place where Kyle Stanley plays well, too.
It's long par 4s.
Yeah, just long par 4s. But Keegan has played really well there over the years, too. And Keegan's putting okay. He's chipping great. Like, if he's just not a disaster on the greens, he's essentially what you think you're getting from Corey Connors every week.
Yeah, that probably makes sense, because I said I didn't like him. And what you get from Corey Connors every week is a hole-in-one and just a fantastic finish. So, yeah, Keegan is a former winner at Bridgestone when he gained 12 strokes putting that week. Pretty standard Keegan situation. But listen, he's been great. He's been playing really consistent golf in strong fields. I do really worry about his putting. These greens are no joke. They are fast, and you mentioned the slope. Boy, he is definitely live for a full Keegan this week.
It is, but just looking back, since he lost 4.8 strokes at the Genesis on the green, since then he's gained in 5 of 7 starts. Not a bunch, but anything in the positive is good. But when he lost 2.7 at Honda, he lost 1.2 at the PGA Championship. Like minus 1.2 is fine on the greens. It's the minus 7s that aren't great.
Oh, 100%. If Keegan, you would sign for that immediately. I don't know. I mean, let me ask you this. Do you look into putting on, lightning or very fast green style splits with someone like Keegan? Or do you just think, his splits are going to be bad basically no matter how you splice it up because he's not a good putter?
That's more or less the route that I would take, is that I can't envision doing any sort of search where Keegan would pop out like not bad because he sucks on the greens. But maybe do you believe like a bit of the recent form on the greens? Like, is that because we always just call putting so noisy all the time, that is there something too short form putting?
It's funny, and maybe it took me to be biased to start to believe this, but Grillo has found something on the greens finally after like 6 years. And he's starting to make putts, and it's become inconsistent. Now it may regress ultimately, but I do think there is something that could be a short-term plug for some of these guys. And maybe Keegan has found something as well. And if that's the case, it's going to be tough to get around it. So that could be a risk that I'm possibly burned on long-term.
Past 24 rounds on fast and lightning greens, not even bent crashes, fast and lightning greens, Keegan loses a stroke per round on the greens. He is the third worst guy in this field on fast.
Yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't sound good,
but that's like, if I ran any other search, would you expect him to be any higher?
It's got to be bad. No, that's true. Listen, it's Keegan. Like, and some of that data, I don't know how many courses fit that bill. So
let's see. I can actually tell you the courses that are weighted in that. Memorial from last year, Workday from last year, Rocket Mortgage, Travelers, Charles Schwab, API, Honda from 2020, Genesis from 2020, Phoenix from 2020.
Travelers is a course that you see any Travelers in this?
I know EPAT said Amex. Just looking at the guys who played well at Amex, just weirdly win here. I mean, I'm not picking Andrew Landry because of that, but like Rahm has won both. Cantley came second there this year. Reed has a really good history here. He's won Amex in the past.
Siwoo.
I don't think Siwoo's ever played well here. I'm not sure, but maybe Travelers. It was really Firestone. Like, when you get fields like this together, like you can make a pretty similar comp to a lot of this stuff. Be like, oh, it's like API. I actually wrote about this in my column this week. It was almost like when we talked through Kiowa, it's like, well, Rory won, just search for the guy who's like Rory, and then you'll find out who ends up winning. It's like, well, it's probably more helpful to look at the next 10 guys to see who they were. And I felt like that actually translated at this year's PGA Championship. It wasn't the same names, but it was the same type of guy that came. Like, Phil ended up winning, but like Brooks played sort of the Rory role. And then everyone else in the top 10 was like Euro grinder or American old grinder. Graham
McDowell's of the world, like when we looked at that originally, the Oosties and these chasers, the Poulters of the world, it did fit that theme. And now Phil was so far off the radar, it's not worth talking about. But, other than that, it did stick to that theme. And I think that was something that was uncovered that was very valuable.
And when you look at it here, you find a lot of shorter hitters who are just good with their long irons. Like I mentioned Stanley, but like McGirt is another one who has a win here. The fuck is his name? The guy who beat Rose in the playoff. Not Norlander, the other's Lingmerth. Lingmerth had the win here. He was sort of like
He's here.
Is he here? Well, he's a former winner, so he's I think he's in the field for life at this one. I remember, when was the last time David Lingmerth played? Byron Nelson 2 weeks ago. Okay, he was horrible.
I must have missed that. Byron. Was he clickable? Like he was eligible to be played?
Apparently so. He lost 7 strokes tee to green in 2 rounds.
Okay. He's working back into it. Yeah, I forgot about that guy.
He did make the cut at Corrales in the Puerto Rico Open, though. So that's nice. And he came 11th at something called the Advent Health, which I think is a Corn Ferry event.
Charity event. Okay, well, this is what I'm talking about. You got 121 guys. Now we're down to 120. It quickly starts to whittle down to you have like 110 playable guys.
But he's another one though. Like he was sort of like when he was at his peak, like the year that he won this tournament. His numbers really mirrored Spieth's in a lot of ways, how Spieth was at that time, where he wasn't the putter Spieth was, but when you looked at the driving, the irons, and the chipping, he was like 80% Spieth in all of those numbers, where he was just kind of good at everything. He was a very balanced player, but he is someone who lost in a playoff at Amex, and he won here. And the guy that he lost to in that playoff was Jason Duffner, who won this event, I think, later that year. Like they're short hitting accuracy guys, but like almost is Molinari in the field? Because like classic Molinari would be a perfect fit for this place, I feel.
I don't think he's here.
He's not.
Good. That makes it more helpful because sadly, I think that was dangerously accurate. But no, it's pretty generous fairways, tight landing areas. And there's a lot of those type of guys that you can choose from. So I do kind of like that theme and like that build. It's a tough little range though. Like these I'm looking now you get like, you've got the Bubba's here, Leishman, obviously Day, which is just very difficult, but upper 7's very difficult range as it usually is.
I don't have any names besides Doug Gim clicked in the $7,000 range.
Oh, what's wrong with Griot? He's playing so well and he's putting.
Yes, he is. And I know I just made the case for Keegan in kind of the same way. I just feel like Keegan's a better player.
Griot's irons are out of control right now.
Well, and he is that style of player that I just talked about that is not a long hitter who still gains a bunch off the tee.
Yeah. When he doesn't have to put pressure on his off the tee game, and that's why I think we see him, Heritage, OHL, like in terms of putting pressure with the distance. I know that doesn't exactly fit what we're talking about here, but give him the irons. And if he's converting like he has been with the putter, I don't know. I think that Memorial is actually a sneaky decent course for Griot, particularly if he's found anything even remotely like we've seen on the greens.
Well, in 5 starts, he has 3 finishes T21 or better, including an 11th and a 9th at Memorial. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he would play this really well. And this is sort of the best form. Is he a guy, like when I mentioned all like those top end players who could make the leap and get their breakthrough win? Are you feeling that for Griot?
I mean, he already broke through at Safeway. Like, that's a historic win.
It's like 7 years ago now.
He really was like a decade ago.
It was his first start on the PGA Tour.
Yes, we got it out of the way. Beat Jason Bone and Tyrone Aswagon. That's good. And Kyle Reifers. Forgot that guy existed. Wow.
Oh, man. Kyle smoking reefers? Boner jams? It was the Pat Mayo nickname tournament. This is great. Let's go back. Let's call it the fries.com again, and we're good.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, when you've already vested a field like that, everything else is just gravy with this guy. But he is playing good golf. And, I'll just point out one more thing about his course history. He was decimated here last year. Again, I don't think those are the conditions that I would want to target Griot anyway. He was crushed with his irons, lost 5 strokes putting. Take that away, and his Memorial track record is fantastic.
So if you look at the projected ownership right now, here are the guys that are getting used in the $7,000 area, because I have just such a very poor feel for what's going on here. And we didn't even talk about Charlie Hoffman, but that's going to be tough. Griot is the highest owned player right now, projected-wise, at around 18%. Tringali, 17. Streelman, 17. Woodland, 13. Wallace, 13. Kazire, 12. Glover, 13. Varner, 10. That would be like your popular guys. And the Gooch, 10% as well. So I think that there's just, if you're going to play the 7K range, there's a lot of decent pivots. Like if you think that you can just get away with hitting fairways and the distance isn't going to matter, Bezuidenhout is perfectly set up for the rest of his game at this course. That if he doesn't sometimes like when you're not good at golf, like myself and like you, and you go to a hole, Paul and I experienced this last week when we went and played. We played at a course where you had to clear a bunch of marsh, on 5 holes to get to the fairway. And like our biggest struggle was clearing the marsh to get to the fairway off the tee. After that, it was fine. But like you just have it in the back of your head. It's like, oh, fuck, man, I'm not going to hit it far enough to clear this 190 off the tee. I feel like that's Bezuidenhout. They're like, he doesn't hit it far enough to get it over some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I love those holes because I don't even attempt it. I just drop it past it, so it's easier for me. But yeah, I don't think they allow him to do that, him and Tim Wilkinson. So it's true. If he survives off the tee, I mean, this guy, I don't know if anyone could sustain these putting numbers, though. I mean, it's just ridiculous right now. I get it. I mean, I see it. To me, I would rather go the complete other direction and roll the dice with Leishman, who, when you get Leishman right, he could just win the tournament. What
about Sink? Irons and putting, the 2 things that he's doing well right now. Like it's got to be real at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all. I mean, look, Jesus Christ, his irons. Yeah, man, what a run! How does that happen?
I feel like this happened to someone a few years ago too, and then they just completely it's almost like what Todd did.
Yeah, this is just like. I mean, some of these tee to green, though. I mean, he's putting on top of it, but it's just a flip the switch moment. He had missed 3 straight cuts, and then it just was electric irons for 2 months straight for Sink.
And no one's using them is kind of the thing. That's why I think this is the real pivot range here, because you can find some good players with relatively no ownership. Like, here's a list of guys under 5% projected as we speak right now. They might inflate throughout the course of the week. Sub to the newsletter as I probably go through a lot of this stuff. Adam Scott, Bubba Watson, Jason Day, Bezuidenhout, Max Homa, Schwartzel, Kirk is at 1%, Siwoo 1%, Brendan Todd 1%. No one's playing Henley. Henley kills Jack Nicklaus courses. No one wants to use them, myself included.
Henley's a guy that I've been getting to. He's just been incredibly frustrating, but it's there. I mean, he needs to just guy can get crazy hot with the irons. He needs to do that. I don't know what's wrong with his around the green game lately, though. He's lost in 5 of 6, and that is, I mean, he does that. It's going to be very hard to compete here.
Like, no one's getting to Munoz after last week. Maybe the general population will jump back onto him. I think a lot of people see 11 strokes gained putting. That's probably not going to repeat itself, and I don't think that it will. Someone even pointed out, like, I like when Munoz gets hot with the putter, but I went back and looked at it. For his career, any time that he has gained 4 or more strokes putting in an event, he's followed it up one time by gaining 3 or more in the next event. It's usually like a loss or like right around even. So I think that's just something that you have in your mind, but isn't necessarily true when you look at the numbers. Ortiz is a really interesting one for me because he's been like the scrambling man for fucking 5 months right now. But I really noticed it at the PGA that at one point on the front 9 every single day, Carlos Ortiz would be like 4 under through 8 holes and then finish the round at +2. I don't know how it happened because they never showed him, but just you'd see his name pops like Carlos Ortiz making a run again. But I trust him around the greens, man. He's been really good.
Yes. I mean, he's playing okay golf. I think what you pointed out, though, is interesting. Carlos Ortiz, he almost strikes me as like a showdown play because he has these stretches, but then you look at the finishes. He has no top 20s since February. Like, and it feels like he's played a lot better than that.
No one will be using him this week. And it's encouraging to see that the ball striking has returned like 2 of the past 3 weeks. He just putted really poorly at Colonial. That's fine. But the chipping is the part that's really like, he's really improved that part of his game. So I think it's $7,000. Like your boy Troy Merritt is right there. Like Cam Davis, everyone like kind of loves him. Matt Jones is really interesting because Matt Jones played really well on Friday at Colonial, but couldn't make. I think he missed 6 putts inside of 8 feet, and then he like dunked it on the water on 18 to miss the cut. And that was the end of the Matt Jones week. But like he just won at a Nicklaus course. He plays hard courses pretty well. He's probably one of the best around the green players in the world in terms of chipping. I don't really know what else he kind of does well, but every once in a while he gets it on the same page. And he had a nice little run from Honda to the Masters to Wells Fargo to PGA. It's funny that he missed the cut at Colonial because that was by far the weakest field he had played in ages.
Yeah, I like that course, actually. I had some Matt Jones last week, and the around the green game went away temporarily. I expect it to be better this week. I don't mind that. I mean, this is a range. Yeah, you're going to be able to mix it up. You're going to be able to take stabs with these guys. There's Australians, as you mentioned. I don't mind that. What about, I mean, you know what I'm going to say. Aaron Wise, he looked good. Big game hunter, 17th at the PGA.
Yeah.
Any love?
Is Ohio on an ocean?
Again, it maybe there's like a, the Lake Superior or something. He gets those lake effect drafting. I don't know. When he putts, he's just good. I just don't know why it takes months of losses to find a plus 3.5 strokes gain putting.
I think I would rather go with Ortiz in that spot.
That's fair. What about HV3?
You say KH Lee or HV3?
HV3.
So
who,
we got
like,
CH3, KH Lee, and HV3 all like at the same price.
See, again, correlate your lineups. You get all guys like that in the same lineup. HV3 was so bad on Thursday, rallied nicely to make that cut. His irons have been good. He's got a little of a whack-a-mole situation with his stats, which I like. It seems like every week there's one thing that's holding him back. I could see him, if you want to stick with your theme of like breaking through, why not him?
I don't know. I don't know if I can get there with Burner. I think I'd just rather play Ortiz. Like, didn't we think that Cam Davis was someone who was going to make the leap this year? Not necessarily as a win, but like move up a level in terms of how good he was. Is that just kind of gone by the wayside? Because he's hitting his approaches really well again. He is horrendous around the greens, though.
So I'll be honest. Like I try to be honest on these shows. My biggest memory of Cam Davis is probably a couple years ago now when he single-handedly moved the cut line because he couldn't get out of a bunker. He was in there for like months, and I'm so worried about him around the green. I don't think he can survive these bunkers. His sand save game, dangerously bad. So Everything else is good, but bad.
He
My
does
God.
suffer from like mini Corey Connor syndrome. He's 63rd out of the sand, 116th around the green.
His shot tracker, I was just like, man, that is a pretty big dot. And then I realized it was like 3 separate shots on top of the same bunker. But
I turned away for a second on Sunday on Kokrak's hole 1, and he was standing over the ball in the bunker. I was like, man, it's taking him a really long time to hit this shot. And I went and I looked at the shot tracker. I was like, how far away from the hole? I was like, oh, he left it in the bunker. That's not good news. I figured my day was cooked at that point. Then he did it again.
And yet here he is. Like, maybe Cam Davis can take that formula that you can still survive it. I worry about the pressure he's going to have to put on his irons, because it's just not a recipe for success for him to scramble a ton at a place like this. So.
Yeah, and the greens and regulation percentage for the field is like 52% at this course. Like, it's gonna come up. You're not gonna hit 90% of your greens and regulation. You almost have to hope it's like a Vic week that he had at Torrey Pines, where hit well above the average of hitting the 98th percentile in greens and regulation. Just hope you don't blow it when you have to chip. Whereas Reed did the exact opposite. I don't know if he hit a green and regulation all week, and he still won by 3.
I mean, yeah, that's just like 2 ends of the spectrum. So I get it, but man, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to Carlos Ortiz is more, the more I look at it, it is kind of interesting. I can't get over the fact that he never seems to close a lot of these events where he's hanging around.
Yeah, but I need him hanging around. And like you said, if you can put yourself into position to get lucky, I think he's a good guy to do it with, because he is kind of constantly around. If you just fucking keep it together every now and then, it would be perfectly fine. And maybe this is the week.
That's fair.
He has a win this year.
Where was I for that?
Was that last year or this year? He won in Houston. He beat DJ and Hideki. Right before the Masters, I think. Or was that 2 years ago? Now I can't remember. It might have been 2 years ago. Before COVID.
It was okay.
Yeah, Houston Open 2020.
But November Houston Open. Okay. So yeah, that counts. You see those. Oh man, super short game. But
wait, what year is it right now? Is it 2021?
Yes, confirmed.
So that Houston Open was the week before the Masters.
But 2 Masters ago. I thought you meant in April.
No, it was the one in November. The one that DJ won in November. He beat out DJ and Hideki. It's funny because he beat. Are those? Yeah. Carlos Ortiz minus 13, Hideki and Dustin, the next 2 Masters champions, tied at minus 11 at that event.
I don't know what that means, but it's something now. So does that mean that Taylor Gooch is in line, who came in 4th in that tournament, to win the Masters next year?
Or him or Seb Straka, who tied for 5th with Brooks. That's a good field. Day, Hatton, Lowry.
It really is.
I mean, there's Kazire in fucking Texas, man, 11th. Every time he's in Texas, just use Patton Kazire.
I got to write that down because I missed that memo last week.
Oh, you did? Oh, you should have been on the show last week. That's what we were talking about.
I know. It was Pat Kazire. I mean, I don't know if I can get to him here because
not in Texas
for a lot of reasons. He's been good.
He has been. He plays these shorter courses pretty well too. Like his wins are at OHL and Sony. He's played Heritage well, although he missed the cut when everyone used him this time around. But it's just been Texas now for him. It's just really strange. 6K guys. Your boy, Troy Merritt, 3 top 10s and 4 starts.
The only thing, one of the few, I've been betting Troy Merritt top 10s, and that is the one thing that has been really profitable lately. He has found something. He kind of reminds me, now I'm going back to Carlos Ortiz, of someone, I was playing him early in the year, and you look at the results, it's not good, but he was there. He would be like 4 under through 12, and he couldn't post a number. And now he's just been fantastic, gaining across the board. Obviously, he's got a hot putter. I worry a little about he'll be gobbled up off the tee, but again, this is pretty forgiving in a lot of ways. I think Troy Merritt is once again in play, especially if he's very low owned.
He doesn't seem like he's higher owned than like Noren and Martin Laird and Seb Straka, but it's not like he's 20% owned. He's like 5% owned or something like that. And I don't even know if the general population knows who he is. And it's not like Merritt can't win. We've seen him win before.
He's got Troy Merritt is that's why I like to bet him at times, not even in outrights, but he's the type of guy, his top 5 and top 10 equity is certainly higher. The problem with him is you can endure missed cuts frequently. But I look at a range that's pretty devoid of options. I don't mind him. I honestly don't mind CT Pan as a complete dart throw.
The Panimal.
Yeah.
You're not getting to Tim's boy, Harry Iggs, who he thought was British.
I do love Harry Higgs in life, but no, I mean, I'm not sure that I'm going to. Harry Higgs' irons are problematic at times.
Let's see. I mean, Pan's good around the greens. He has been putting a little bit better. That's nice to see, but he's someone who can sink you on the greens pretty quickly.
Confirmed. The thing I like about CT Pan is he is one of those guys, and you've kind of coined this, when he putts, you can get, he can sink you on the greens, but he can also gain 8-10 strokes putting. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, he's in the JB Holmes category where he's going to lose 9 out of 10 weeks, but that 10th week is going to be +9. Yeah,
I mean, it really bears it out, though. He endures, losses on the greens, and then boom, at Honda, gains 5.1 out of nowhere. He's got those spike putting weeks, and you pair that with a good short game, that could be pretty effective here.
Merritt is the highest ranked player in terms of the short-term modeling of anyone in the $6,000 region, but that doesn't include is Rosner overmatched in America right now?
Where is he? 65?
He's 65. He's the number fucking 49th player in the world or something.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. So all I can look at, and you would know better than me because you're just printing money in Europe every week.
Thanks, Guy, for that, by the way. That show's coming out tonight because that weird tournament doesn't start till Friday, and it's only 3 rounds now. But Paul Casey's playing, and so is Answer.
Is Kiefer in there?
In
That's
Germany,
really
you'd have to assume so.
Oh.
This is it. I used Kiefer last week, and he fucking sunk my great Euro lineup.
Sorry. Yeah, this Rosner guy, I don't know. Is he horrible around the green? Because at the PGA, from what I can see, his irons were absolutely fantastic, but he just couldn't do anything around the green.
I mean, I think that's a really tough situation. And this happens with a lot of European players, that the only strokes gained, American data that we get are at majors and WGCs. What is that really telling us? They're playing the hardest possible courses against the hardest possible fields.
You see it all the time. And then guys like EVR come over and confirm that it's just a mess. But Lucas Hebert's another one in that realm. I don't know. Victor Perez. There are some of those names in this range. I just think I would probably rather go to someone we've seen a little more, even a Fertelli or something. We got more data at least.
Well, Fertelli is confirmed good around the greens. How come Higo is not in this field? That would have been nice.
He just came over. No, he went back.
Rosner on the European Tour this year in 22 rounds is 64th on the Euro Tour in strokes gained around the green. He actually averages in the positives per round, but I don't know what that's really telling us.
I mean, as long as it's not a massive leak. What about Benny On?
No, can't do it.
All right.
I would
Best around the green player in the world.
I would like to do it, but it's either the driving or the irons have been absolutely horrendous. I can't. It's the irons. The irons are straight up bad. He actually gained off the tee at Colonial for the first time since Honda. At least with Benny Ann before, and with Keegan, with Connors, and even Gim right now is in that same category of just guys who can't putt whatsoever. At least they were good ball strikers. Ben Ann was a legit ball striker for a while. He fucking sucks now.
And he can't putt still.
Yeah, then that's a problem.
Yeah, no, that sums it up somewhat succinctly. I can't really push back on any of that. I mean, how low are you going? I mean, well, Kyle Stanley, obviously.
Stanley and Knox are both $7,100. I think that they're good plays.
They're definitely underpriced. There's no doubt about them. I do want to ask you this. You have any interest in pairing them?
What kind of lineup can you construct with both those guys in it? Because I was very comfortable with Whaley. When I played the Play the Best Plays lineup last week, Vince Whaley was in that lineup. Like I had no problem getting to him. Oh, you know, there's the $1 million pitch. What the hell is this contest on DraftKings? Oh, $250K to first. There's a $20 $250K tournament this week. Did not know that.
Neither did I. Hopefully I win that. That would be
You would like the $250K?
useful.
You could be like
Yeah,
everyone else who watches the show, just wins $250K like it's no problem.
That would be nice. But I just, people are going to obviously pick Stanley. People may say, I don't want the chalky guy. I'm going to pivot. I don't know how many people are going to pick both, because if you pick both and they get through, you can legitimately have, 3, even 4 like top echelon players.
If you take both of them, you have $9,400 left. 94.5 per player. So let's say you even wanted to take, we didn't love anyone in the 7s. Let's say Lowry. Just chuck Lowry into that lineup. You now have 9,800 left. That means you could start your lineup Hovland, Xander, Cantlay if you wanted to, and still have money left over. You could go Thomas, Cantlay, Xander in that lineup if you wanted to. So it would be Knox, Stanley, Lowry, JT, Cantlay, Xander.
That's pretty interesting to me.
That's not a terrible idea. What if? Here's the lineup for you. If you wanted to like really go through it. Knox, Stanley,
Haotong.
Merritt.
Oh my God.
And now we go Bryson, Rory, Cantlay. No, Cantlay doesn't fit by $100. Hideki. There's a lineup.
I mean,
but that's not
that is a lineup.
That is not it's not great, but it's not horrible either.
Correct. I mean, you're literally drawing to. You have a rotating 2 of 3 like exacta box style. You need those top end guys to come and take all the placement points, and then it just becomes, all right. Even my guy comes in like 32nd. Can he just score? That is viable. It's just, of course, very narrow.
I'm just trying to look at like the ownership projections. Yeah, Stanley right now I got a 15%, and he probably gets like even Whaley last week. I kind of scoffed it off when I went through the ownership. I was like, oh, Fantasy National is saying that 18% of people are playing Vince Whaley. Like, there's no way the general public knows who that is. That he ended up at like 24% or something.
Ridiculous.
So Stanley's going to be super highly owned. Whether you want to eat that chalk or not, I mean, that's on you. Right now I have Knox at 4%. He is the highest of the other guys who is down here, and Rafa Cabrera-Bello is up there. I actually have 2 other ones, though, because people are using Duffner a little bit. He's a former champion. He really helped me out until the weekend at Colonial. But there are 2 players down here that I think that are logical pivots that I really don't mind. 2 really good sand players, too. Horribly inconsistent, but one of them is really good at Jack Nicklaus courses, and it's Brandon Hagee. He is 6,200. And Danny Lee played sneaky good last week.
Danny Lee, isn't he a Colonial guy?
Is he a Colonial guy? I thought he was like a Green.
I think he's a
guy.
member.
No, that's Ryan Palmer.
I think Danny Lee goes as his like +1.
Let's see. Yeah, Danny Lee plays it every single year. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. He came 6th, and he has some decent finishes at Charles Schwab. But the ball striking was really good last week, and he is one of the best sand players in the world. All the Australian guys and the New Zealand guys really good out of the sand.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, but there's obviously something to it. Brandon Hagee is someone I never really understand, because when I always thought, and maybe he's still like, I pictured him like Cameron Champ, but his game is not exactly the same as Champ's in a lot of ways. So
he putted really well at the beginning of the year, and that kind of masked how bad his approaches were. Like, he's probably won't get to Hagee because the approaches are so bad, but around the green and off the tee is really good.
Isn't he like a mega bomber?
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than, I thought you might say Thigala.
No, I'm kind of off that type of player, tell you the truth.
Yeah. I'm not there. Haotong Lee is here. That's all I could say about him.
Man, he's down to like 500th in the world rankings or something.
It's bad.
Kanger's playing well lately. He's made 2 cuts in a row.
James Hahn is there. I swear to God, I looked at James Hahn, and I know there's no form, but that guy randomly comes in like 4th.
Yeah. Steele is down here too. Like there's
names.
There's non-bad players. Like the weird thing is, like, and this is what you look at sometimes too, that a lot of players who've played well here have played really well at Sawgrass over the years. I don't know why. Maybe it's just random chance. But like the leaderboards, I know they're both stronger fields, so that would make a lot of sense. But like Victor Perez is someone that I feel like I should have some interest in.
I'd rather play him than Rosner. I'll say that much.
Like he's played 2 tournaments, the Masters and the PGA, in the past like month and a half, and he missed the cut at both. But he missed the cut at a major. He was 9th at the Players before that.
Yeah, I mean, at least he's got some additional reps. It's that trap of when you see him over here, he's playing against the best players in the world on some of the toughest courses. So it's not a fair shake in that regard. So I don't mind that. He's certainly someone, if I need more guys in the 6s, I won't just like cross off. Good old Patty Harrington.
Do you buy anything into the guy that led the PGA Championship in strokes gained approach for this course?
Well, I don't know who that was.
He likes
Martin Laird.
He likes to party.
Oh yeah, it is. No, I really. I mean, I don't know. I guess I kind of see some like waste management in here.
Yeah. Now we're searching.
Now we're stretching.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. With Laird, first of all, he can obviously just take you out with putting. We all know that, but he's another one. I know I keep saying this. It's like, oh yeah, he's been playing pretty good. He never sustains it. I mean, after his win at Shriners, he's done literally nothing. Even when he's played okay, it's just never seems to, materialize over 72 holes.
Doc Redman's been playing a lot better ball striking wise, but I just went and looked at his putting numbers. He's played 4 rounds over 2 events at Memorial. He's missed the cut both times and has a combined -10 strokes gained putting over 4 rounds. Probably not going to get even.
That would be an issue. Yeah, I don't think he fits exactly what I wanted to do anyway. So I'd rather play, honestly, like Grace blindly, even though he gave up last week too.
Did he give up, or did he like legit hurt himself?
Oh, he might. I mean, we'll see. But he's here. I never get that. It's like, I mean, maybe it's just a couple of days rest and you're back to normal. I just always find it weird when a guy like he's just playing again.
Oh, don't forget about Bo Hogg. You always got to play Bo Hogg at this course. He's like, he grew up on the course. His dad worked
he's
at the course or something.
Columbus guy or something. Bo, 63. I mean, the funny thing about someone like that is he would be getting actually more buzz if we didn't have these obvious guys. It's just so glaringly obvious that Stanley and some of these other guys are underpriced. So Benny On is right there too. I'm definitely going to play a couple Benny On teams. I have to do it.
I think what you're going to do with Benny On, I'm going to do with Danny Lee.
That's fair. Danny Lee is interesting. I always, and maybe I'm wrong about this, I literally take his Colonial results and I have him in like a separate bucket because I thought he like grew up on that course.
I mean, I don't know.
He
came 40th last week. He's bad around the greens, but he's another one who's bad around the greens, good out of the sand. And just looking at his numbers, like he's gained off the tee in 9 consecutive events, which is really weird. And the irons are either like really good or really bad. It's bizarre.
Danny.
Listen, I'm going to play Stanley. I'm not going to be scared of that chalk. I'm going to play Russell Knox, and I'll probably play Danny Lee. Will I play all 3 of them in a lineup? I don't know. We'll find out. And Merritt will probably be the only other guy that I'll get to in the 6s. And like, I'll probably play more balance. Like, I will probably do kind of the same strategy as last week. Like, build half my lineups balanced with like a cap at Carlos Ortiz as the last man in, and then play a few like superstars, super scrubs, maybe even a balanced scrubs type roster with the other 10 lineups where I get in Stanley and Knox and those type of guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think the good thing about Memorial and a field like this, there's a lot of different ways to build. I mean, just on this show, we talked about balance builds, and then we also talked about like 2 low 6K guys in the same lineup, and paying all the way up. So like you have the opportunities to really, mix it up. And I like that about this tournament.
All right, let's get to the most important part of the show.
Here we go.
The best plays lineup. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
How do you think we approach this? Because, like we said, like 60% of the field is going to make the cut. Do we put Kyle Stanley into this lineup? Is the question.
I think that we have to.
All right, so we'll go with Stanley. He'll be our first man in, sort of like Whaley last week. That leaves us 8,700 per player. Does Griot make this lineup? I guess is my question. Because
I think he does.
It's Griot or Keegan. It feels like from that range.
I mean, you know, I always go Griot, but maybe both. And
okay, if you put Griot and Keegan into that lineup, you now have 3 more spots, $9,400 per player. So that would leave you with Finau in, Hideki in, Cantlay. That lineup works.
Yep.
That's
and
the
you
lineup.
have 100 left over.
Yeah, that does make
really
it.
Is.
Now that we've kind of thrown it out there, I'm sure other people will use it. But I told a guy he tied for first in the CryptoPunk version, that tournament. He tied for first, and now it's a head-to-head contest this week to see who wins the CryptoPunk. He asked me like what he shows. Like, I mean, you're doing obviously better than me considering you came first in a GPP, even if it was tied with someone. So you should probably just trust yourself. I was like, just play the best plays in a head-to-head contest, and you'll probably be fine.
God, what a sweat. That's actually, yeah, I did not win a CryptoPunk.
Do you ever play head-to-heads?
So I used to play a decent amount of cash, and once in a while I'll sit, but not nearly as frequently. I've kind of transitioned some of my stuff to more betting oriented, and obviously in tournaments still going for these monster prizes. But you never play cash, right?
No, I never play head-to-heads, and I never play cash. I feel like I should, because I feel like I'm better at those lineups.
I mean, it's a totally different mindset where you're not nearly as, you know, interested in the ownership and whatnot. It's all about 6 of 6, but there are parallels. And yeah, I mean, with these lineups.
But honestly, like maybe do we put too much emphasis on the ownership perspective of this? Because if you can actually build 6 of 6 lineups, just fucking use those. Those are gonna win you money every week.
Yeah, I mean, there's a double-edged sword. Of course, if you can do that, you should do it. It's just about, you know, what are you leaving yourself with? You know, 6 of 6 is 5%, which is extremely low. If you have one of them, you're going to have a fine week, but you still can set yourself up for situations where you're kind of boxed out, even if you get everything right. And when you're talking about 33% up top or whatnot, that is a factor, but yeah, you get 6 of 6. Just do that, and then DM me and explain how you're doing it, so I could do it.
Like last week, almost to your point last week, like Maverick McNeely was such a hinge play for me, and when he went bad, I went bad. But he was 2% owned. That when he was up in third place, it was like, holy shit, I'm at the very top here. If he can just figure it out and keep himself in third place, even if he loses to Spieth and Kokrak, I'm gonna have a really high finish. When he melted, so did my team. And he was when Charlie made a birdie who was on that team, it didn't really make that big of a difference for me.
Exactly. Because when you can like pseudo ISO a player, because you have to understand when someone is say 3% owned, you know, there's not that many people that played them, but then you have to factor in 6 of 6. The number of 6 of 6 teams with Maverick last week, I mean, it couldn't have been a lot of them. So you're literally playing almost by yourself there. Every time he birdies, you are gaining 3 points plus placement on the entire field.
Yeah, that lineup had the 2 low-owned guys in that lineup were Mav and Gim. And I mean, Gim did his thing where I think he had a 5-foot birdie putt on every hole and made 2 of them.
Yeah, and that's, you know, you got to live with that. But there is something to trying to do that. But at the same time, you can get a low-owned guy. That is how you really can move up the board. You don't have to force it, though. Like, again, leaving money on the table, there's other ways to be unique.
All right. Ben Raza, check him out at awesemo.com, at JazzRazDFS on Twitter. Also, if you want my final picks for the week, Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix. Also up on that feed right now is Daily French Open Picks, Ben.
I love betting tennis. One of my favorite activities.
Shout out to Matt Best, who found a guy good at betting on tennis.
Those guys are few and far between. I'm going to plug my guy, Blaine, at Awesemo. Fantastic guy. Knows all about clay and things that I don't know about. I love to bet on tennis. I don't know a lot about tennis. So you got to find those guys because there's hundreds of players in these tournaments outside of Nadal. And there's a lot of value out there if you can pay attention.
Yeah. Is tennis a softer market once you get past the big names? Almost like, Remember when golf DraftKings first started and everyone who knew anything won?
Yeah, those were the days.
It was great.
It was nice. No, I think there's something to that. Like everybody knows. It's one of those things. I would venture to say if you ask people name tennis players, a large percentage could say Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, but the drop off to get even to the next guys, Tsitsipas and Zverev and those guys is big. And then going beyond that is even huge, even for casual tennis people. So I think that's where the value comes in.
Yeah, I've been out of the tennis loop for so long. Like I could name the big three, but I wouldn't know who was ranked 4th, 5th, or 6th. Like I could name you guys, but I have where is Milos Raonic? The only reason I know him is he's Canadian, but is he a top 10 player? Is he a top 20 player? Or is he just shit now?
Yeah, I think he's around. He didn't play. I'm almost certain he withdrew before the French Open because he's hurt.
Yeah, that guy runs like he's going to get hurt. It's like watching Anthony Davis run. It's like, oh my God, this guy's frame shouldn't support this large of a man. And he just looks so awkward and gangly. Isner's another one who's like that.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, Isner, Opolka, the monster servers. Their stuff. I mean, listen, there's a lot of fringe sports. I was betting lacrosse the other day, the Euros for soccer. That's one of those things, if you have people who can really know what they're doing and who can hone in on them, a lot of value out there.
Yeah, if you're British and would like to be paid and know a lot about the European Championship for soccer, let me know because I'm looking for someone.
There it is.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. I have a couple of American people who say they know a lot about Euro, but I feel like it doesn't sell unless the guy has some sort of if you're German and speak good English, it's easier with British people because they speak English and then they have the accent. You're like, oh, this guy must know what he's talking about.
This guy's legit. Yeah. Yep. I hear that.
And I'm not actually lying about that. I've been DMing with Tom for a long time, but one of the main reasons to get him on I didn't want to do a European tour pick show that didn't have someone who was European on it.
Yeah. I mean, I totally hear that. It makes sense. They're just very in tune to what's going on and, there's just a lot out there, so
it's like having
lower end.
Put it this way: it's like having Cody on the MMA show. I can't have two guys on the MMA show who have perfect grammar. I need one guy who has bad grammar.
It's all about that balance. That's why I'm very, I can fit a lot of those things with bad grammar, not knowing what I'm talking about. I balance a lot of stuff out on these shows. It's good.
That's perfect. All right, Ben Raza, Awesemo.com @JazzRazDFS. Hit the like, rate and review. FantasyNational.com/Mayo. Other things of that nature. I'll see you next time.
Fan Mayo Experience! Experience!